Now there are two women accusing Supreme Court nominee Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct. There's still no solid evidence that either event actually took place at all or took place in the manner described. So this is still a perfectly open case, and it shows a problematic culture of binge drinking and partying in elite prep schools and elite colleges. And this is a problem that affects both political parties, affects the industry, affects all parts of society. Now, mainstream media, alternative media, they're being very, very partisan about this. So if you are a leftist and you've been victimized by someone from the right wing, or if you're at least not a problem for the left wing, you are part of the Me Too movement. But as soon as you accuse somebody who's a Democrat, as soon as you accuse somebody who is important on the left, you become a problem for the left. It's not you too. You're out. You're not part of that particular club. And so right now with Kavanaugh and some other political candidates and some other wannabe office holders, we see this partisan attempt at making leveling accusations, trying to judge a potential possible criminal case, judging by character, which is just an aspect of how you actually go about a case like this. So, the first woman said that Kavanaugh sort of kind of halfway tried to rape her at a party. Supposedly everybody was drunk. You know, this was the Georgetown prep school, right? And other schools of that nature. And the second woman says it happened at Yale, the university. Again, everybody's drinking, everybody's binging and partying. And Kavanaugh supposedly, according to the allegation, partially undressed himself and presented his penis. So, we have been checking into this case. We've been checking into this case for a while now, and Kavanaugh, he's probably a member of Skull and Bones or any other secret society at Yale. He's a trusted fellow traveler of the Bush family. He's done some weird cover-ups for the Clintons, so there are many reasons this man should not be a Supreme Court judge. There are many reasons he should not go to Supreme Court, independently of all this allegation, all these sexual allegations that are now leveled, which may or may not stick. As it looks right now, nothing will possibly stick. You know, you can't just expect something to come out of allegations decades later. And yes, I understand that many women who were victimized, who are being victimized, they have certain reasons why not to pursue a case, why not to go to the police. The stigma, ending up a social outcast, being smashed by the perpetrator's family's lawyers, and many, many more reasons. And also, when the police blows you off and says, well, you don't have any evidence, so there's no case here, many women choose not to involve the authorities. I understand that, but still, technically, if an allegation comes decades afterwards, usually that's not enough. That doesn't really prove anything. So, yeah, and there's this larger culture of alcoholism and partying, and possibly even compromising new people, the next generation of young men and women who are supposed to go on and end up in these important positions. That is a larger problem in America and affects both parties. Now, some people have now dug into the first accuser's yearbooks, her past, and oh my god, she was partying, right? There's some stuff that was found that showed that she was part of that very normal culture in those circles that, you know, you party hardy, lots of alcohol, lots of sex, and so that doesn't make her in any way special in that sense. It doesn't really stand out. it doesn't make her it's not like she's an unreliable, or she was an unreliable person, unreliable observer, kind of that typical slut argument. Oh my god, she had some fun too, that's why you can't believe her. That's garbage, right? That doesn't really work. She was partying just as everybody else was partying, and we don't know who partied harder or the hardest. So, Georgetown Prep School. Now, the whole Georgetown complex, you know, a lot of people go there and are trained for national security jobs and high positions, high-level stuff, diplomats and spies, and the CNP network, you know, this shadowy network with people such as Steve Bannon and others. This network that is trying to control the entire right wing. Whereas you have other people from the same establishment who try to control the left political spectrum. And so, yeah, this whole Georgetown complex is also tied to President Trump, because people from his family and some very trusted people from his administration, they went to Georgetown. They're part of that circle. And we know that Donald Trump partied hard. Now, Kavanaugh, in one of those yearbooks from back then, Kavanaugh talks about the Devil's Triangle. The Devil's Triangle, there's some talk about heavy drinking and heavy partying. And so, is this something that is by design, that is intentional? Now, you can do your research and you find out that very elitist universities all over the world have the same kind of gig going. You have to join the partying. You have to drink heavy. I mean, drink to the point of blackout. You don't know what you're doing anymore. And of course all the sex orgies and that sort of stuff. You have to be part of that circle, and when a certain organization such as Skull and Bones or some other group, if they like you, if they think you're useful to them, they will recruit you, and they will require you to drink more to get into the society, to get into this student organization. To get in there, you have to drink and almost kill yourself. And then you have to keep drinking. Now, what is the reason behind this? It's not simply group building exercise. You know, just taking a risk and proving your worth to the team, right? It's not just about that. It's not just about that, right? So you value a group higher than it actually is, just because it was harder to get in. It also appears to be intentional by design, by the establishment. You get these people to compromise, to get compromised, right? Somebody gets drunk and somebody has a cell phone, somebody's recording evidence, somebody has evidence somewhere. And so from the first moment, even in a prep school or early in college, you get compromised. The group you're part of, they will cover for you, they will help your career, but they will always control you because you made a fool out of yourself or a criminal out of yourself back then, and your group has the evidence for it. Now, that is, of course, something that is one of the core tactics of any intelligence agency or any intelligence group, and maybe this is something that's occurring at those schools, at those universities. This technique is used. You get these young people who have all these careers in front of them, you get them to become alcoholics, to have wild sex, to do stuff they shouldn't, and then you control them. Now, in history, we find some interesting parallels, of course. Now, under the Russian czars, or some of the Russian czars, it was mandatory if you were close to the throne that you took part in these insane drink and party binges, right? Some of the czars, they were very pious and they're very religious and they were banning all the partying, but some of these czars, they were crazy, and they had a very specific idea. They wanted their staff, their trusted people, or who they thought were the trusted people, they wanted them to spend a lot of time binge drinking, so they wouldn't have the energy to conspire against the throne, to do something stupid. You know, the binge drinking was supposed to take away their spare time and to control their spare time, so they don't grow a conscience or some dangerous ideas or whatever. So then, of course, we have this whole kind of occultist angle to it. Now, you might have heard of Skull and Bones, which is very weird and has some occult elements to it. Then, of course, when some of the stuff came out, a book was released which tried to portray all this weirdness as just fun or banter or whatever, anything to make it sound harmless. Well, it's probably not harmless. And so, when Kavanaugh talks about a devil's triangle, that might actually have some deeper meaning. Maybe not the deepest meaning yet, not at this stage of his life and his career. But there's a distinctive element to occultism, or many strains of occultism, that you have to go through this crazy phase. You have to be wild and have do all these drugs, do all this alcohol, have all these sexual relations in order to get closer to rock bottom, get closer to breaking open new gates, and to prove your worth and indulge and to protest against regular people's ideas, what society should be. So there are some interesting things in literature you can find. So you have to do it the hard way. You have to go through this black and dark period, and anything that messes you up is fine. And if you survive it, then you can go on. Then you've supposedly achieved something. So that's a weird connotation about this, but let's stick to what we can say for sure. Let's stick to the real reasons why Kavanaugh should not go to the Supreme Court. There are much better candidates out there. You could have a Judge Andrew Napolitano going to the Supreme Court, but no, it's supposed to be Kavanaugh. Trusted fellow traveler of President George W. Bush, probably a member of Skull and Bones. So, he got his degrees. And then he served as staff secretary in the executive office of President Bush. This was a whole vote fiasco in Florida, the year 2000 presidential elections. Of course, you probably remember when the numbers were being messed with, and there was a recount, and Bush's people were all over it, and they kind of sort of fixed it, and and then Fox News announced, Fox News, of course, announced Bush the winner almost right away. Very suspicious stuff. You've probably seen the research. And so, Kavanaugh helped the Bush campaign with the recount. And he got some additional help from James Baker and also Roger Stone. Right? Isn't that interesting? So then Kavanaugh worked for President Bush. He chose new judges for important courts in the United States. Then there was the Vince Foster case. Vince Foster supposedly committed suicide. He was an advisor to the Clintons. He was Bill Clinton's lawyer and an advisor in the White House. In 1993, they found his body in a park near Washington, and supposedly he had a phone call with Hillary right before he died. And so the Congress wanted information from him about documents that Hillary was involved with. And so, Kavanaugh, he kind of smoothed things over. He made everything kind of sort of go away, and there's accusations that he intimidated witnesses or whatever, and irregularities. So that's kind of these accusations, but he's a team player, right? He's worked in the favor of the Clintons and in favor of the Bushes. And there's many other things you can look into, and his opinion on the NSA spying and lots of more stuff. All of that is being pushed to the side right now by some decades-old sexual allegations that probably can never be proven or disproven. Yeah, stick to what you can tell. Stick to what you know, and understand the larger problem. Understand the larger problem. Now, The Intercept, which is this media outfit paid for by a billionaire, and they had Greenwald and the Snowden documents. The Intercept quotes from a memoir by Mark Judge, and Mark Judge used to hang with Kavanaugh. And so it's about alcoholism, right? It's about alcoholism and binge drinking and how he couldn't stop his drinking and keep it under control. Judge was talking about these blackouts where you don't know what happened. You wake up and you don't know what you did. You may have done something stupid, something criminal, and you can't remember. So this is from the book Wasted: Tales of a Gen X Drunk. And so if we think back, well, everybody was partying. The girls, the guys, they were partying. And maybe somebody did something stupid there. Maybe people did get out of control and they couldn't remember, and this is not really, something you could convict somebody of so many decades later. And you can't really figure out what happened. So, we'll follow up on this case, but this is sort of the picture that stands right now. You can't just accuse the other side. You can't just think the problem is going to go away and that your side is going to win. It's one establishment, it's one deep state that controls it all, and so you better be careful whom you support. Now, I never thought I'd see the day when Alex Jones over at InfoWars would ever stand up for a man like Kavanaugh, who is a trusted fellow traveler of the Bush clan, and who's a likely Skull and Bones member. Now, remember the old days? Remember like 10 years ago when Alex Jones used to tell was insinuating some party stories about George W. Bush? You may have heard about that. So, Alex Jones knows certain people in Texas from the music scene or from other circles. Some kind of people that mingled with politicians, and so there's this whole party circle, and then rumors get spread. Oh, George W. did this, George W. did that. And so Alex Jones was telling about those rumors, and I even think he told a story about some Bush family members, something he saw, and then somebody that was with Alex wanted to and then somebody was with him, wanted to stand up, make a photo or whatever, and Alex, the way he told the story, I don't know if that's true, Alex Jones held his friend back and said, no, do not do this, do not mess with that, this is way too dangerous. So, if that's a true story or not, Alex Jones at least knows whom he's dealing with here, whom we're all dealing with here. And I understand it's right before the midterm elections. I understand that compromises have to be made, and and you can't be a pure, you know, pure white angel all the time. But we've come to this point where Alex Jones is standing up for a likely Skull and Bones member and fellow traveler of the Bushes. Is this the right-wing revolution? Is this what we've been dreaming of? Is this acceptable? Is this in any way helpful to the country? No. We have to go after these politicians when it's justified, you know, not necessarily for some decades-old partying where everybody was partying and you can't tell who did what. I mean, if people are really guilty, if you can prove something, then go after them. It doesn't matter if they're a Democrat or Republican. Sticking up for these people is not going to help you. And also understand that there's a network and there's a system and there's an establishment, and from the first moment in the United States, families have been intermarrying and they formed a new aristocracy, right? And if you want a true republic, if you want a true America, you have to understand that hidden aristocracy, and you have to understand that they play both sides of the political spectrum. And this sort of left-right wing thing, this was invented very late in the game. This wasn't used before then. They just made that up. And Clinton Roosevelt, from the famous Roosevelt family, Clinton Roosevelt wrote, in simple words, the basic concept of socialism or communism roughly 20 years before the infamous Karl Marx wrote his large book that is almost impossible to understand because it's garbage, and he knew it was garbage. But it's the same core ideas that Clinton Roosevelt used. And Karl Marx is very suspicious. You can find an interesting video on my channel about this guy, and very interesting spy connections. He looks like a spy. And he got some really significant help from establishment circles. So this is it now for the Kavanaugh situation. We'll keep you posted on this topic and many other topics. If you like this, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, support us on Patreon, and leave a comment down below.